In a village blessed by a singing river, prosperity comes easy, until gratitude turns into greed. When a mysterious mermaid appears and her tears are discovered to turn into gold, the villagers believe they have found endless wealth. But every blessing has a price, and the river never forgets those who take too much. This dark, immersive folktale explores greed, temptation, and the terrifying consequences of exploiting what was meant to be honored. Stay till the end, because when the river remembers, there is no escape. At the edge of the forgotten lowlands stood the village of Grey Willow, a place where even silence had a sound. It was not a quiet village. It breathed, hummed, whispered, and sometimes groaned like an old drum left under the rain. But above all else, Grey Willow listened. Every morning before the sun lifted its pale face from the horizon, the people woke to the voice of the river. They called it River Lawn, and it did not roar or rush like other rivers. It sang. The sound was soft and steady, like a long breath drawn through reeds. Some mornings it was gentle and kind. Other mornings it trembled, low and heavy, as if burdened by secrets too old to speak aloud. The villagers believed the river chose who would prosper each year. If its song lingered near a farmer's land, his crops would grow tall and thick. If it curved toward a woman's heart, her belly would soon swell with life. No one argued with the river's will. In Grey Willow, the river was older than memory and stronger than doubt. Life followed signs. If the rooster crowed twice before dawn, rain would come. If it crowed 3 times, a wedding would soon be announced. If it did not crow at all, the villagers ran to the riverbank with offerings, fearing they had offended something unseen. Children were raised to listen before they spoke. Elders thought that silence was never empty, it was waiting. And so life went on, peaceful and predictable, until one misty morning when the river sang differently. A group of children had gone down to the water's edge to fetch clay jars before the heat grew heavy. The fog clung low, wrapping the river like a pale blanket. As they laughed and pushed one another near the rocks, a sudden scream split the air. Something shimmered near the reeds. At first, they thought it was sunlight caught in water, but the sun had not yet risen. When they stepped closer, their laughter died in their throats. She lay half submerged, tangled in river vines, her body still as stone. From the waist up, she looked like a woman, her skin smooth and shining as if polished by moonlight. Below, where legs should have been, was a long tail covered in pale blue scales that caught every hint of light. Her hair drifted around her face like dark smoke in water. Her eyes opened. They were deep blue, darker than the river itself. The children ran. They did not stop running until their feet burned and their lungs screamed. They burst into the village shouting wild words that tripped over one another. A woman in the river. She has a tail. The water is holding her. Within minutes, Grey Willow was awake. Drummers abandoned their breakfast fires. Traders left baskets half-filled. Even Chief Harold Boone, whose white belly often arrived before the rest of him, came hurrying with his staff in hand. The villagers gathered at the riverbank, whispering, pointing, trembling with fear and wonder. They saw her then. She is not a woman, the chief said, his voice thick with awe. She is the river's daughter. No one argued. They lifted her gently from the reeds and carried her to the old stone shrine beside the water, wrapping her in clean white cloth. As they did, the river's hum grew louder, richer, as though it were singing her name. They named her Elora, meaning the river's gift. From that day on, Grey Willow changed. Fish filled nets so heavy that even children had to help pull them ashore. Fields grew thick with grain. Goats birthed twins. Women who had long given up hope began tying bright cloth around their waists, smiling shyly as they sang by the river. Elora could not stay long on dry land. She rested near the water on smooth rocks, her tail always touching the river. Children gathered around her in the evenings, listening as she hummed strange, gentle songs. When she laughed, fish leapt from the water as if answering her joy. Chief Harold declared her arrival proof of his wise leadership. He ordered new huts built closer to the river to honor her, though many suspected he simply wanted her within sight. Only one man did not cheer. Elias, the village storyteller, sat by the river at dusk and listened. The river no longer sang as it once did. It was quiet. And beneath the still water, something unseen shifted, slow and patient, as if waiting for the right moment to rise. For a while, Grey Willow believed it had become the center of the world. Morning after morning, the village woke to full granaries and easy laughter. Nets came up heavy without effort. Crops ripened faster than anyone remembered. The air itself seemed softer, warmer, like a blessing resting on their shoulders. People stopped speaking of survival and began speaking of comfort. And comfort, as it always does, gave birth to desire. At first, the villagers approached Elora with careful voices and bowed heads. They brought her woven cloth, carved bowls, and songs of praise. She listened patiently, her pale hands resting on the smooth stone beside the river. When someone spoke of need, a sick child, a failed field, she closed her eyes, hummed softly, and the river answered. But slowly, the words they used began to change. Please help me, became, I need more. Thank you, became, why not again? And gratitude turned thin and sharp, like a knife worn too long. Farmers began to ask for longer rains, even when their fields were already full. Traders demanded faster harvests so they could sell more in distant markets. Men whispered prayers for beauty, strength, and favors that had nothing to do with survival. Each request pressed against Elora like a weight she could not put down. She never refused at first. But each blessing took something from her. Those who watched closely noticed the changes. Her glow dimmed slightly, as if a lamp were being slowly starved of oil. Her songs grew shorter, her laughter rare. When she rested by the river, her shoulders often trembled, though she tried to hide it. One evening, as the village gathered with baskets and bowls, Elora raised her hand. The river gives only what it can carry, she said softly. If you take too much, it will break. Her voice was calm, but something in it made the children fall silent. Chief Harold Boone stepped forward, his chest puffed out, his staff striking the ground with authority. The gods sent you to us, he said. They did not send you to sit in silence. Grey Willow has honored you. Now you must honor us. The crowd murmured in agreement, their faces glowing with expectation. Elora's eyes filled with sadness. She looked at the river, then at the people who once sang for her arrival. The next morning, she granted no wishes. When villagers knelt before her, she turned away and slipped into the water, vanishing beneath its surface. The river remained still. That was when the whispers began. She is hiding her power, someone said in the market. She favors only a few, another muttered. Why should a river creature decide our fate? A voice snapped. Suspicion replaced wonder. Songs of praise faded into silence. Among those who felt the change most deeply was a man named Caleb Reed. Caleb had once been a fisherman, but luck had never stayed with him. His boat sank years ago, his nets rotted, and his wife left for a man whose hands smelled of grain instead of river mud. Now Caleb wandered the village with empty pockets and a bitterness that sat heavy in his chest. One moonlit night, hunger gnawing at his belly, Caleb dragged himself to the riverbank. If you bless thieves and liars, he muttered, staring into the dark water, at least bless one honest man. No answer came. Then he heard it. A soft, broken sound. He moved closer and froze. Elora sat alone on a rock, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook as quiet sobs escaped her. When her tears fell into the water, they shimmered faintly, just for a moment. One tear splashed onto Caleb's arm. It burned, then cooled. When he looked down, the water on his skin had turned into fine gold dust, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Caleb did not breathe. He waited until Elora slipped back into the river, then ran home with shaking legs. On his mat lay tiny flakes of gold, scattered like fallen stars. By morning, his hunger was forgotten. And so was his gratitude. That night, Caleb returned, not to beg, but to plan. As Elora wept, he listened, his eyes bright with something darker than hope. Caleb learned quickly. At first, he told Elora stories that were almost true. He spoke of loss, of hunger, of loneliness that pressed on his chest like a stone. Elora listened, her eyes soft, her hands folded in her lap. When she cried, she did so quietly, as if ashamed of her tears. And when those tears fell, Caleb was ready. He carried a small clay bottle hidden beneath his cloth. Each drop that touched it shimmered, then hardened into fine gold dust. Caleb never rushed her. He never touched her. He only waited. Night after night, he returned. Soon, truth was no longer enough. Caleb learned to bend his words, to twist memories, to invent pain where none existed. He spoke of a mother who died screaming in the rain. Of a child he never held. Of dreams crushed by laughter and mockery. Elora's shoulders shook as she wept, and Caleb's bottle grew heavier. By day, Caleb changed. He bought meat instead of begging for scraps. He wore clean clothes and spoke with a confidence that surprised those who remembered him as a quiet failure. When people asked how fortune had found him at last, he smiled and said, "The river remembered me." But the river remembers everything. Secrets never stay hidden in grey willow. They move like smoke, slipping through cracks and into listening ears. One night, two children, and Noah, known for their quick hands and quicker feet, followed Caleb out of curiosity. They hid behind bushes near the riverbank and watched with wide eyes. They saw Elora crying. They saw the gold. By dawn, the village buzzed like a disturbed hive. Caleb makes the river cry. Her tears turned to gold. No one laughed it off. Even Martha Hale, the sharp-tongued fish seller who had never trusted Elora, went to see for herself. That night, she crouched behind a tree and watched the truth unfold. Her mouth went dry with shock, not with fear, but with hunger. The next morning, she stormed into Chief Harrod's compound. "Caleb is hiding the river's blessing," she shouted. "He bleeds her sorrow for gold." By sunset, half the village stood at the riverbank. Caleb tried to deny it, but the crowd pushed forward, voices rising, eyes burning. When Elora saw them, she backed into the water, her breath quick and shallow. Chief Harrod lifted his staff. "If her tears bring gold," he declared, "then she must cry for us all." They built a cage from thick palm wood and placed it near the river's edge. Elora watched silently as it closed around her, her fingers gripping the bars like a child clinging to safety. At first, they begged. They sang the old songs. They spoke softly. They promised offerings and praise. Elora turned her face away, her jaw tight, her eyes dry. Then the tone changed. Voices sharpened. Laughter crept in. Hands reached where they should not. When she still did not cry, anger took over. No one spoke of what followed in detail. Only that Elora's tears finally fell. The drops hit the sand and hardened into gold before their eyes. The village erupted. People fell to their knees, clawing at the ground, laughing and crying at once. Gold filled pockets, bowls, and mouths. That night, Grey Willow shone like a place touched by stars. Chief Harrod declared a festival of prosperity. Drums beat without rest. Fires burned bright. Gold dust coated faces and hands until the villagers glowed in the dark. No one looked at the river. Elora lay still in her cage, her skin dull, her breath shallow. The water around her darkened, thick and silent, as if holding its own breath. Only Elias, the storyteller, stood apart. He listened. The river did not sing. And far below the surface, Something old and patient opened its eyes. The morning after the festival dawned strangely quiet. Grey Willow woke without drums, without laughter, without the usual calls of traders. The gold that had once gleamed like captured sunlight now looked dull beneath the pale sky. Beads felt cold against the skin. Dust clung too tightly to fingers, as if unwilling to let go. By midday, small things began to go wrong. Milk soured before it could be boiled. Cooked food lost its taste. A goat collapsed near the market square, foam at its mouth, eyes wide and unseeing. Mothers pulled their children closer, uneasy but still unwilling to speak fear aloud. By evening, the river rose. Not violently. Not yet. It crept beyond its banks, slow and silent, soaking the earth like a patient warning. The water was darker than anyone remembered, thick and heavy, reflecting no light. Those who approached it felt a chill crawl up their spines. Elora was gone. Her cage lay broken at the water's edge, the wooden bars cracked as if pried apart by something far stronger than hands. No footprints marked the sand. No struggle was visible. Only silence remained. Chief Harrod called for calm. "The river tests us," he announced, his voice loud but unsteady. "We have been chosen. We must not show fear." But fear had already chosen them. That night, the river rose again. Homes closest to the bank flooded first. Water swallowed doorsteps, then floors. People grabbed what gold they could carry, stuffing it into cloths and baskets, but the metal grew heavier with every step, pulling them down like anchors. Children cried as the water climbed their legs. Then the river sang. Not the gentle hum of old mornings, but a deep, aching sound that seemed to come from the earth itself. It carried sorrow, rage, and memory all at once. The sound pressed against the chest, making it hard to breathe. The ground trembled. From the river's heart, a massive wave surged forward, not fast, not wild, but deliberate. It swept through Grey Willow, tearing away huts, extinguishing fires, dragging gold into the depths where light could not reach. Caleb ran. His pockets were heavy with gold, his breath short. He stumbled near the riverbank, the weight pulling him down. As he fell, the gold crumbled into black dust, burning his skin like ash. He screamed, but the river's song swallowed his voice. Chief Harrod stood frozen as water rose around him. His staff slipped from his hand. The river reached his chest, then his mouth, silencing his commands forever. By dawn, Grey Willow was gone. Only broken trees, scattered stones, and wet earth remained where a village once stood. The river flowed calmly once more, its surface smooth and clear, as if nothing had happened. Days later, travelers passed through the ruins. They spoke in hushed voices of a river that punished greed and remembered pain. Some claimed they saw a pale figure beneath the water, her hair drifting like shadows, her eyes no longer sad, only watchful. Elias, the storyteller, survived. He sat on a distant hill, carving words into wood so the story would not be forgotten. He told of gratitude lost, of blessings abused, of a river that gave and took in equal measure. And sometimes, just before dawn, when the world is quiet enough to listen, the river sings again, not for wealth, not for power, but as a warning. Because the river remembers. And it always will.